Hello and welcome. If this is your, I don't know how many times here, welcome or welcome back if this is your first time here. So after yesterday's live, I realized that I didn't necessarily go too much into detail about what self-awareness, how to cultivate self-awareness. And this is such a huge step, so I figured I'd make a really deep and detailed video about it so that you're able to understand it a little bit more. So I have some notes here, and if I look down, that's what I'm looking at. And so I want to start with why self-awareness is important in the first place. So self-awareness, when I think about it, when I didn't really have self-awareness, I kept thinking that everything in my reality and in my life was other people's fault, and it was other people's I kept blaming other people for things that were showing up in my reality and in my life. And I didn't realize, because I was not self-aware, I did not realize that I actually had a lot of control over the things that were showing up, and they were showing up because of how I was showing up and because of my beliefs and my thoughts. And so when I started to become more self-aware and recognize the thoughts that I was having and the beliefs that I had and the tone that I spoke to people and my family, people around me, and realize that when I speak a certain way, people respond back to me a certain way. And when you don't have self-awareness, when you don't realize that, you just think that things are just happening to you and that people are out to get you. And this doesn't just happen like you come out of the womb thinking everyone is out to get you. This is something that happens because we go through trauma, through certain experiences in our lives where emotions get stuck and they aren't able to be processed. So when you go through trauma, and I've gone through certain things in my life where I just, like, as a child, you don't know how to release certain things. Like, maybe people criticize you. I've had a lot of people in my family criticize me growing up, or just certain trauma that you go through in your childhood and you don't know how to deal with it. Like, people don't, usually I feel like as an immigrant and like as a foreigner, it's not even something you can talk about. There aren't, like, with your parents, this is not something that you discuss. In the culture, when you go through certain things, it's not something that you discuss. So you have nobody to talk with. And most of the time, it's not that everybody, like, people have bad intentions and are out to get you. But when someone is criticizing you, or when someone is speaking to you a certain way and you're a child, you don't know any better, you don't know how to handle certain situations, you just kind of absorb all of it and you take it in and you kind of think, oh, it's my fault, this is happening, this is happening because I deserve it, or certain things like that. So there are certain things where you can take from childhood and you bring it into your current life and you think, oh, it's this way because of this, it's this way because of this, and you start to have certain beliefs around the world around you and your experience that aren't rooted in reality, aren't rooted in what's actually happening, but you're viewing them through the lens of the trauma that you went through or the experiences that you've had as a child, because you never actually processed those experiences. So let's say someone in my family criticized me as a child, and I just took that in as, oh, I'm not good enough, like, and then you take in like a specific criticism and you just think, I'm not good at this, because you don't say this out loud, this is subconsciously what you believe about yourself, and you think, oh, like, this must be true about me because so-and-so said so, and you start to kind of act from that place. When this happens, you aren't necessarily seeing the situation in front of you. Let's say in the present right now, you start to kind of become defensive when certain people tell you certain things. When they say something to you that isn't necessarily something to be offended about, and you just sit there and you become offended and you shut down, or whatever is your method of handling things, if you go through that and you become defensive, it's not rooted in reality, because someone could have actually had good intentions and they're trying to share something with you or tell you something, and you're becoming triggered because someone pressed your buttons, and someone is just like, they're just sharing something with you, and the way you handle it inside is how the child version of you handled it, because you didn't really know any better. You didn't really know how to process certain emotions at the time. But becoming self-aware and learning how to process difficult emotions as an adult is really important, because then you start to see the world around you for what it really is, instead of seeing it through the trauma that you went through or all the triggers that you have. And something else I want to say is, when you have a lot of unprocessed trauma and triggers, you will feel really heavy in your body, and you, like, it will just feel like this tense energy that you can't seem to get out of. You can't seem to kind of pull yourself up out of it, and it feels like everything is a chore or a burden, and that, like, people in life are just out to get you. You're not gonna believe that, like, oh, like, I'm here to create this beautiful life with beautiful relationships and just experience life and play and have fun. That is not going to be your perspective, because you're viewing the world through all the trauma that you've gone through and all the things that you've gone through as a child that you weren't able to process. And so when you view it from this point of view, it can ruin a lot of experiences in your life and a lot of your relationships, because you're not actually seeing things for what they are. You're continuously seeing your experiences through your trauma. And so in order to be able to kind of heal your trauma, the first step is to become self-aware and start to notice, what things trigger me? What beliefs do I have about the world? What beliefs do I have about myself? What beliefs do I have about how people should behave? What thoughts are continuously repeating in my mind? Like, so some of the ways that I've done this is through journaling. One of them was journaling. I really, journaling, like, it's not the same. Like, you can notice your thoughts in your head, and you can be like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. But when you sit down to write something down, at least for me, it might not be the same for you, but for me, when I write something down, it's like your subconscious mind is like laying out information that was not available to you before. So when you're just continuously writing, like, in the beginning, it will probably be like your conscious mind, where it's like the thoughts that you're aware of are the ones that come out. And then as you continue to write, the thoughts that you weren't being brought up to your attention, that you just act on without thinking, those are the ones that are going to actually come up. And those are the ones that are actually important. And this is how you actually get to know yourself on a deeper level, and get to know your triggers and your repeating thoughts and patterns. And so there are multiple journal prompts that you can do to get started on this. I can leave some in the description below after this live. But you can also just like free flow and kind of just write and start out. Like, for me, in the beginning, I didn't even know what to say. And still, even to this day, sometimes I'll be like, I don't know what to write. And I just start from there. I just say, I don't know what to write. And if nothing else is coming up, I literally just continue to say, I don't know what to write. And eventually something comes up. Eventually I just continue. I say what's on my mind, and I just keep writing. And then eventually more comes out. So if you have, like, you're struggling to know where to start or how to begin, just literally write every single thing that you're thinking, even if it's just, I don't know what to write. So that's somewhere to start, to get to know your thoughts and become more aware of the things that are going on in your body and your mind. And another one is meditation. So meditation is something that I used to kind of not understand like I had a skewed view of meditation, because I used to think that meditation was used to slow down my mind and have no thoughts. Like I thought the goal was to have no thoughts, but that's not possible because we're humans. Your brain is literally designed to have thoughts and to continuously be looking out for things that could go wrong. So the goal of meditation is not necessarily to like have no thoughts. I think that's why most people give up on meditation, is because that's not possible. Like you can't just have no thoughts. So the goal of meditation is actually to, at least from the way I understand it, is to sit there, allow your body to actually slow down to a point where you're able to realize what is going on in your head, to be able to notice what is going on in your body. Where are you holding tension? Where in certain, like some, for me, like an example of this was not breathing fully. I started to notice certain parts of my body where I was like, there was pain that I wasn't paying attention to, like maybe certain thoughts would come up that I wasn't able to catch before. So I think for me, the point of meditation, the way I use it, is to slow down my body, to be able to notice what's going on inside, and to actually not judge what is going on. Because I feel like in the beginning, I used to sit down and meditate and I would judge the things that were coming up. So the point of meditation is not to do that. It's not to notice what's coming up so you can judge yourself and make yourself even worse. It's to just notice what's going on and allow things to be. And it's almost like just taking a mental note. Be like, oh, I think this about this. Okay, that's good to know. Like, but just literally noting things down to understand yourself better. Just see it as that. And there's nothing to judge yourself about. That's not going to help you. If you judge yourself, you're not really going to get to a better place. And notice how judging yourself is also a pattern. If you notice that you judge yourself so much to a point where you just can't even get to like a better state of mind, and you can't even notice what's going on, you immediately jump to judging yourself, that's a pattern. You'd be like, oh, that's interesting that I judged myself about that. And just let it go. And just let it go. It gets to be that easy. It doesn't have to be this thing where you beat yourself up and you're like, oh my gosh, I suck for this. Why was I thinking this? Like, it doesn't have to be like that. It really doesn't. So meditation has helped me with that as well. And the next point I have is to pay attention to how people behave when they're around you. So pay attention to how different people behave when they're around you, and how one specific person behaves around you versus other people. So paying attention to this has helped me understand how my tone and the things that I'm saying have an impact on the people around me. I've literally tested this out, and when you're first starting, you'll notice that. Well, at least I'll speak from my experience. When I first started to do this or notice it, is one day at my job when it was at a job that I really did not like. I hated it. And when I would show up, I tried to show up as my best self, or what I thought was my best self at the time. And I would show up and I would be like, kind of like, it was very clear on my face that I was not happy. And I realized that the way I spoke and the tone that I used affected the people around me. And then one day I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is gonna be the best day ever. And I like literally made an effort, and I just changed the way I was thinking. I changed my tone, the way I spoke with people. I was super enthusiastic, and I changed everything about how I interact with people. And what do you think happened? People reacted back to me differently. People are only a mirror of what is going on inside of you and the way that you're showing up. When people react to you a certain way or respond to you a certain way, it will most likely 99% of the time have something to do with the way that you are showing up. Imagine that, I mean, honestly, like this is not going to be obviously for every single person, because there are some people who are just grumpy, and like maybe you'll show up and you're like all enthusiastic and you're like upbeat and you're just super happy and you're sharing something from your heart, and someone will just not reciprocate that. And you'll know at that time it has nothing to do with you, because you can feel that your energy did not have anything to do with that. You did not contribute to that. So you'll be able to tell, the more you practice this, what is a reflection of you and what you're bringing into the experience, and what is just someone in their own world and doing their own thing. You'll be able to tell more the more you practice it. But just noticing a lot of this, like I noticed that with my family, a lot of the time, the tone that I used and the way that I showed up, I kept thinking it was them that was the problem, but it was in reality me and the way that I was showing up. So just become aware of how certain people react to you and the tone that you're using and how you're showing up. And I'm just looking down at my notes so I don't forget anything. So the last thing I have that I guess I kind of like already went through this with every single point, but the most important thing is to just observe what is being put in front of you, whether it's in your mind or whether it's in other people or whether it's in an experience. Observe the content without reacting. That is literally like the definition of self-awareness, is becoming aware of what's going on without necessarily having to react. Because sometimes in the beginning, where you'll start to become aware of certain things, and you will probably in the beginning, you will notice that you become aware of something and you can't even stop yourself from reacting. You can't even, you'll notice, oh, this person says this, and you'll notice your immediate response that you're already used to because it's a habit. It's literally ingrained in your body. You just start to do it. And in the beginning, don't beat yourself up about that. But the goal is to get to a point where you just observe without reacting, because that's going to help you understand yourself more. But even when you react, you actually learn about yourself a lot. Even when you react and you kind of say something back, you're like, oh, it's interesting that I reverted to this method of communication. It's interesting that I just blurted that out even though I didn't want to. You'll notice all the things that you struggle with impulse control, because not everything that goes on in your head has to be said out loud. You can control yourself and not say every single thing out loud. You can also be honest. Something I struggled with was am I being honest and true to myself if I don't say every single thing out loud? Yeah, you can be honest, and you can, you don't have, and also it's about your delivery. You don't have to just blurt things out and say whatever is on your mind just because it's there. You can be honest in other ways. You can also wait for when you're in a better headspace to share something with someone. So just observe without reacting. And even if you react, that's also a learning experience to get to know yourself. And I also have this, I think it's interesting how people say, I feel like I've heard so many people now say, you triggered me. And I never really understood that, because when you're saying someone triggered you, it's like you're saying that they have control over you and they're the ones doing something to you, they're poking you and you have no control over it. No, if someone is poking you, you get out of the way and walk away. That's not how that works. People can't just trigger you. They wouldn't be able, it's like when people say, oh, don't press my buttons. But would they be able to press your buttons if you didn't have those buttons? That's kind of how trauma and triggers are. They're stuck emotions that are in your body that haven't been released. And so when someone brushes up against them or someone presses a certain button, that's when you get triggered. So the trigger is not caused by someone else. They've just said something and revealed something to you about yourself that was already there. They didn't put the trigger in you. It was already there. They're just helping. People are actually it's really interesting, because I think people can be really helpful in helping us grow, because they'll reveal our triggers to us. Because sometimes oh, I don't know where to start. What even triggers me? you'll be able to tell people. If you interact with other people, you're going to get a good idea of what triggers you and what doesn't. So just understanding, like, an affirmation that I used a lot in the beginning is, it is a gift when I am triggered. Just use this whenever you're triggered and you feel like, oh my god, I have to respond to this. I can't believe they're doing this to me. I can't believe they're speaking to me this way. Just use it. Use this affirmation and say, it is a gift to be triggered. What can I learn from this? How can I move forward to become a better person from this? Because at the end of the day, it's not the other person doing something to you. It's something that you need to work on within yourself. So that was my last point, and I hope that that was helpful. I'm going to leave a few journal prompts in the description below, and also I believe I put a few books that helped me as well when I was beginning this personal development journey. There are books that have helped me heal trauma within my body. They have helped me become more self-aware and learn more about my beliefs and my thoughts, and learn how to speak myself in a better and more compassionate way. And so if you guys want the links to those, they're also in the description. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!